What is up, guys? Zezuu here, and today is a special day. Today we come together and we break bread because it is Scary Reddit Saturdays. Today's topic of discussion is, what is your scariest paranormal experience, real paranormal experience? I also encourage, before this video starts, I also encourage you guys to, if you guys want to share your stories, please, by all means, share your story. I actually will share one of mine during this video, because I have one that I thought was pretty scary. So, what is a paranormal experience that you've had? No one ever believes me when I tell this story, but whatever. Back when I was in high school, the early 2000s, I went to Mexico with my ex and his family. We went 18 hours into Mexico to visit his sisters-in-laws. When we got there, it was a weird experience for me because I'm black, and most people in their town had never seen anyone non-Mexican in their entire lives. To say strangers were interested would be an understatement. The third night I was there, I awoke to a feeling I was being watched. I turned over and saw an old Mexican woman staring at me, but not in a malicious way, more like curious or amused like everyone else. At first, I thought it was my ex's mother-in-law, since we were staying at her house, so I called out to her in Spanish, but she didn't answer, and after a few moments I realized I could see through her. Eventually she walked out of the room, and I tried to shake it off and go back to sleep, but I couldn't. The next morning I told my ex's sister what happened, and she says, "Oh, you saw her?" I'm like, "Pardon the F?" And she goes on to tell me that while she's never seen La Vieja, her husband has a couple times. And the last time he saw her, she almost led him to his death. She tells me that one night a few years ago, they were once again visiting her mother and staying in her house. In the middle of the night, her husband awakes to the feeling he was being watched. He sees a woman that looks a lot like his mother standing in the doorway. He calls out to her, asking why she's awake at this hour, but she doesn't answer. Instead, she walks out of the room and eventually goes outside. Half asleep and in a trance, he follows, calling out to her again and again with no answer. Side note, his mother's house is located in the valley between two mountains and is so isolated she still draws her water from a well in the front yard. So, my ex's brother-in-law is following this woman thinking it's his mother, and eventually follows her outside. He runs after her and sees her jump directly into the well. Panicked, he begins to jump in thinking he is saving his mother from drowning. But the moment before he jumps in the well, he fully awakes and realizes there's no splash and the water at the bottom was completely still. If he would have jumped in, he would have drowned. They have no neighbors and everyone else in the house was asleep. No one would have heard him scream for help. Needless to say, I packed my S and went home early. F that. You see, I would have left. I wouldn't. I don't know what else he did the right thing. I wouldn't have done anything else. I would have got out of there really as fast as I could. Back in 1984, when I was 10 years old, I was out shopping with my mother when she suddenly all but collapsed. Some people and I helped her to a nearby seat, and after a few seconds she turned to me and said, your grandmother has died." We went home, a 30-minute drive, and upon arrival she learned that her mother had indeed died a half hour before. To this day, it is the only inexplicable thing I've ever witnessed, but I have no doubt in my mind there was some sort of link between the two of them that was broken that day. I kinda had something like that happen when my grandpa died. We had just came back from seeing him actually that same day, and we got back, and apparently I didn't have this happen to me. It's more of like my mom, because I got a text from my cousin that lives with my grandparents that he had passed away. He had been in a nursing home for about 10 years and had some medical issues and stuff like that and everything, and she had texted me and my sister that he had passed. And then I got a call from my grandma that she was like, she called me and she said, why is your mom not answering? And I was like, well, I think she was up but my parents, they go to bed pretty early, and it was like 11 o'clock when they called at night. So when they called, me and my sister were still up, and she called, and she was like, well, your grandpa has passed away, and if you could tell your mom, then for me, then I would like that, because she couldn't get a hold of my mom. But my mom, for some reason, before anyone had texted or called or whatever, her phone was going crazy. It was like she was getting texts, calls, a bunch of emails. Like, her phone was just going crazy, and she couldn't do anything about it. I don't know if it was just a coincidence, but that's what she told me had happened. She also got like a bunch of notifications, and there was literally nothing, like text messages, stuff like that, and it was literally showing up on her phone. But when she was able to get into her phone, because her phone was locked up, there was nothing there. So we think that it was my grandpa trying to reach her or something. I don't know if that was what happened, but my sister and I shared a room when we were tweens. I think she meant to say teens. Tweens? Is that like 11? Okay, yeah, so let me reread that and not look stupid. My sister and I shared a room when we were tweens, and we both swore that it was haunted. We'd hear strange sounds and see weird stuff out of the corner of our eye. There was also an oppressive feeling of something very wrong once the sun went down. My sister and I were way too old to be afraid of the dark, and we were fine with darkness anywhere else. Eventually, my sister refused to sleep in the room. Mom, of course, didn't think there was any possible way we had a ghost, and thought this whole thing was ridiculous, until we went to summer camp. We came back to this story from our mom. We had been gone for a couple of nights. Our dad was working graveyard, so my mom had the house to herself. She was getting ready for bed and heard laughter from our room. She heard it a few times before it struck her that we weren't there. Mom checked the room and the lights were on. Mom tried to convince herself that she was imagining things and turned the lights off. She heard the laughter again and went to check again. The lights were on again. Mom instinctively just said, "You kids, go to bed," and she didn't hear them anymore. After that, Mom believed us, but we're still kind of stuck with that room. It was an old house that we had while we were saving up for a better place. My sister adopted a cat, which helped for some reason, but it was months before the cat would go into our room without flipping out. Like literally ears pinned back, growling, hissing, and bolting out of the room like a bullet. We eventually were able to move to a nice home, and even Mom was too happy to leave. Yeah, that's some creepy stuff. Some very creepy stuff. My family has a cabin next to a lake in Vermont that we spent time at in the summer. One night, while sleeping in the upstairs bedroom, I hear what sounds like someone getting up to go to the bathroom. It was coming from right across the hallway across my door, so I assumed it was my mom, usually a usual occurrence. Oddly enough, no lights went on and no bathroom noises. The noise of footsteps just stopped. A minute later, I had this odd feeling that someone was standing at the half-open door to my bedroom, watching me. This feeling went on for minutes until all of a sudden the feeling of someone standing by my door turned into a feeling of someone standing directly over my bed. For the next 5 minutes, I had a terrible feeling that someone or something was looming over me with their face mere inches from mine. The 5 minutes or so seemed to last forever. Suddenly, as soon as the feeling started, it abruptly ended. No retreating footsteps, no noise at all. Whatever it was just gone. The next morning, my family and I were eating breakfast at the table, and I still couldn't shake the feeling. Then my sister spoke up and asked, "Mom, what time was it that you got up to go to the bathroom last night? I could hear you up and walking around from the downstairs bedroom." Confused, my mom said that she never got up last night. My brother laughed and said, "Mom, we all heard you." Then my dad piped up and said, "No, your mom never got up. I didn't either." That's when I shared my experience. Freaked everyone out. Yeah, it's a little scary right there. It's a little scary. I guess we can go into detail about what I had happen to me. I just got to college, and I had a roommate, and I had this other guy. I'm not going to give their names, but football team and the volleyball team are the only people on campus, like way before all the other students come on campus. So we went to one of the girls' dorms, one of the volleyball girls' dorms, just because, my roommate wanted to see some girls. There was no girls on campus, so I just tagged along just to go. And it was, if you go to West Virginia Wesleyan, the school that I go to, you know that there is a dorm called Aggie. And the story behind that is that this girl, I think she had tuberculosis, and she lived on the 4th floor. It was an all-girls dorm. She had tuberculosis. Her room was on the 4th floor, and 4th or 5th floor, I don't exactly remember. But she died not actually in the dorm, but she died, and they cut that floor completely off. I think it was the 5th floor. I think it had 5 floors, and I think the 4th floor is the one that stops, if I remember correctly. But the 4th floor, it's not where she was like staying at, but I think the 5th floor was where she was, and they completely shut that floor down in her honor, and then changed the name to her as well, to her name. Ever since then, people have been experiencing really crazy things. Like, I've heard some stories about people having like stuff knocked off their walls, stuff turning on and turning off, like just crazy things happening. We were there, and we were just chilling in this girl's room, and they told us about it for the first time, and I didn't, I've never had anything at this point, never had anything supernatural happen to me or paranormal or whatever. And we're standing there, and I'm standing near the door, and I hear footsteps run from one end to the hallway to the other, right past the door, and I look out and there's no one there. So that freaked me out. So I kind of cracked the door open, but not too close to where a draft could slam the door. Someone would have to come and slam it. Someone would have to come and push that door to close it. That's how wide it was, but it wasn't that wide. So I'm standing next to the door still, and a couple minutes later the door just slams, and me and my roommate and everyone else is like, we all like scream because we're like, what the flip just happened? And the girl was standing there. She was like, yeah, that was probably Aggie. Okay, so this is Aggie. It was the first dormitory constructed at West Virginia Wesleyan, so it's the oldest on campus. So that joint's pretty old. Literally, my earliest memory, I was 5 years old, and I was playing in a pile of leaves in our backyard. The yard had a brick wall at the far end. On the opposite side was a highway. There were a few openings along the bottom of the wall for drainage, I guess. So I'm playing in the leaves, and suddenly I hear this super weird noise. It was like a high-pitched yowl, and then I see this weird thing emerge from one of those holes at the bottom of the wall. It was moving slowly and really weird, and I froze in the leaf pile and just watched. I distinctly remember whispering to myself, "A monster," because I 100% thought it was a monster. I staggered up to the leaf pile and realized it was just a cat. I knew what cats were because my dad loved cats, and we had several pets. This cat was enormous, and he was also very fluffy. So I grabbed this cat and dragged him into the house to show my parents. Here's the scarier, sadder part that I didn't realize until I was older. Apparently someone had thrown the cat against the brick wall from their car. That was the noise I heard, and the reason the cat was walking so weird was because his spine was broken. There was a real monster that day. It wasn't the cat. It's gut-wrenching. It's gut-wrenching. Oh my God. There was one time when I was younger that I was home alone in mine and my mother's old townhouse. I had been downstairs in the living room and suddenly felt uncomfortable being down there alone. So I decided to go to my room. I get about halfway up the stairs when I feel this horrible sense of dread and panic, and I look back and see this complete silhouette of a man, complete from head to toe, standing in the corner at the bottom of the steps. I could feel him looking at me even though there were no eyes. I ran up the stairs and locked myself in my room until my mom got home. It wasn't until years later that I was diagnosed with schizophrenia, which explained that happening and a lot of other things I was going through, seeing or hearing. I've gotten more used to the things I've seen and heard over the years, and the medication helps immensely. But I remember that moment so clearly because it scared me so deeply. I'll never forget it. Amen. So I can sympathize with people who have these types of diseases because I can only imagine what they're going through. It seems like it's really, really scary. I was a rookie cop when my brother committed suicide. He was one of my older siblings, but we were very close. He died in another state, and I had a lot of guilt then about not recognizing the signs. His remains were in bad shape by the time he was discovered, so it was a closed coffin service. About a week after he died, I was back at work one night, and my partner and I see a pimp pistol whipping one of his girls. I jump out, and the pimp sees me, and the foot chase was on. I was running after him, gun in hand, and he cuts through a narrow corridor under a building that leads to a courtyard in the middle. Right before I reach the courtyard, I hear "It's okay" and my dead brother's voice. I hit the courtyard, and the guy is against the side, pointing the gun at my head, and squeezes the trigger twice. I froze for a millisecond, and then started beating him in the head with my revolver. To this day, I don't know why I didn't just shoot him, cuff him, and walk him back to the street and find my partner. I tell my partner about him squeezing the trigger, but not the voice I heard. We unload the gun right there, and 2 bullets have strike marks on them. Take the gun to the lab for testing. Tell the tech story. He puts the 2 bullets with strike marks back in and shoots in the test tank. Both bullets fired. So his brother saved him. We used to live in a battered women's and children's shelter when I was young. Because my father was looking for us, ugly divorce, Alabama gave him custody. Mom took us to Washington, I'm assuming. One night I looked in the mirror and saw a hairy demon looking back at me. I screamed and cried and ran to get my mom, who assured me it was a normal mirror. But that night, a kind-looking man that I can only describe as a ghost appeared at the end of my bed. He was there all night, but gone when I woke up in the morning. Then the next night and the next night. He was there every night for 4 months. We never talked. He never moved, just stood guard. Then one night he woke me up from my sleep, and I'll never forget how surprised I was because I had never seen him move or talk. He said, "He's coming, get out now." So we packed up the car and left to a hotel for the night. The next morning we went back to find out someone had broken in and gone room to room looking for someone. I never saw him after that. That right there is too much. That is scary. But I have chills. Like, that is scary. Like, it's weird. Like, I don't know how to explain it, but like, a ghost literally saved her. This was a great episode, guys. I am spooked now, but this was a great episode. I feel like these are some good stories. I shared some of mine. If you guys want, you guys could share yours, and I'll definitely respond to any of the stories that are in the comments. But anyway, guys, if you guys enjoyed, if you guys like this, if you want the series to keep going, you guys really showed support on the first one. You guys like that. I mean, it was a lot more views than I was getting on any video that I've posted in recent. A lot more likes too. So you guys really snapped on that, and I appreciate it. But if you guys like it, If you guys like this, you want us to continue, show and comment, like, do whatever, so I know that this is something that you guys want to see and continue. And anyway, guys, if you guys enjoyed, please like. I said that already, but it's okay. If you guys want to subscribe, you guys can. We're trying to build a community and get things rolling. Anyway, guys, I'll catch you guys later. Peace.